All right, folks, welcome to Sunday's edition of Outspoken. I'm Dan Sileo, and what an absolutely great time on the sports calendar right now. We have NFL free agency right around the corner. Monday is the illegal tampering, and then Wednesday, of course, is when deals can be officially signed. Also, college basketball right now is heating up. The last regular season week before we get into the tournament games and then the NC2A March Madness games. And also, World Baseball Classic, but let's start it off in the National Football League. Look, these deals are going to come hot and heavy, and one of the greatest deals, speaking of hot and heavy, is 6'6", 338-pound nose tackle Jordan Davis. What an absolutely sensational deal that he signs. He signs a 3-year, $78 million deal with $65 guaranteed. Always remember, folks, the last number is the most important number because that's money in the bank. $65 million. Here's a guy when he came out of Georgia that I had really reservations on because I never really thought he lived up to his potential. We saw him at the NFL Combines. Guy ran a 4.78. He's 338 pounds, like I said, and all the metrics on him, he never really lived up to his expectations in the first couple of years. Clint Hurt, the brand new defensive line coach, goes in there with Vic Fangio and has absolutely changed this kid's career around. Had a great year a year ago, one of the better nose tackles, and now he signs the richest deal in NFL history for an interior defensive tackle, making now 26 annual large. That's a big old bag of money here. Now, here's the big thing on the side of the Eagles. Jalen Carter was expected to sign this contract extension, their number 9 pick a couple of years ago. But this past season, with shoulder injuries and also with some character issues, remember, he started the game off in the season off against the Dallas Cowboys by spitting at Dak Prescott. He ended up obviously having an issue there. He ended up getting suspended. And again, there was a problem with those shoulders. He ended up outplaying him. Here's a great example of a player that you kind of watched him kind of limp along his first couple of years in the NFL, but you had patience with him. You brought him in. He ended up getting into a contract deal, and he ended up getting a 5th-year contract picked up. Now he gets this 3-year, $78 million deal with that $65 million guaranteed. Look, I liked him. You know, this past season, I still think he has a lot of work to do. I still think that, again, if you're a 1 and a 2nd down player and you're not a 3rd down player, to get this kind of money here, $26 million, making him the richest nose tackle in the history of the game. That includes Dexter Lawrence. I don't believe he's Dexter Lawrence, but that's a big bag of money, and the Eagles are gambling that he's going to continue to improve his football game. I'll say it once more time about Jalen Carter. Jalen Carter was expected to be the next wrecking ball that the Philadelphia Eagles had. And to me, he's not lived up to that yet. He had a great 2024 when he had Milton Williams on one side, and he also had Josh Sweat on the other side. Guys, again, this past season, between his agent Drew Rosenhaus pulling him out of games, he was supposed to be the one to get the contract extension. They were talking in excess of $30+ million for Jalen Carter. They're probably going to punt on that now. In my expectations, I think they're going to wait and see what 2026 looks like for Jalen Carter. One guy is ascending, one guy is regressing, and that's Jalen Carter. This is a big sign right here for the Eagles, and this is also a big message to Jalen Carter. Hey, man, you got to show up in 2026. There are so many question marks about this deal, and it really, people thought this past season when they got rid of Milton Williams. Remember, Milton Williams signed that big contract with the New England Patriots for $26 million. And then on the other hand, you had Josh Sweat sign that $19.75 million deal with the Arizona Cardinals. So they moved off of those guys. They took a blowtorch to the number 1 overall defense in the Super Bowl year 2024. They went with Mauro Joma. They went with other guys. They went with Temu signings. This was a big move for them. And also, I think a real disappointment right now for Drew Rosenhaus and the agent for Jalen Carter. Supposedly, there was conversations in the Micah Parsons deal that potentially was going to send Micah Parsons to the Philadelphia Eagles. And they were putting a contract together. And Jerry Jones, at the last second, did not want to go along with that deal, and they ended up moving him to the Green Bay Packers. There's also a conversation going around that there was talk that he was involved in the Max Crosby deal. So if you're pimping him around and you're making him available potentially, now again, we're in the land of misinformation right now. You're going to hear a lot of deals, especially on Monday, when you're going to see some of these numbers coming out. These are all agent driven. Nothing gets really certified and nothing gets really official until it goes to the NFL Players Association and also Park Avenue. That means Wednesday. Next Wednesday is the official day of free agency. So we shall see what happens. But what a big deal. 3 years, $78 million, 65 in guarantees. All right. So let's go over to this now. Have you guys ever heard of Norman Dale? The Hoosier guy, right? The movie Hoosiers. You know who Bob Knight is, right? Well, we got a modern day version of that. And that guy is Dan Hurley, UConn head basketball coach. You know, everyone was sending me messages because they know I'm a UConn Husky guy and I love the Huskies. And they end up getting knocked off by Marquette, 68-62. And Dan Hurley just gets in the ear of a referee and gets tossed. When I'm watching Dan Hurley coach this team, it reminds me so much of Bob Knight without the chair. There's right there, Norman Dale. So he ends up getting fined too by the Big East for, get this, unsportsmanlike conduct. Okay. Hey, I think college basketball needs characters, and I love this character here. I see why the Lakers wanted him as their head basketball coach instead of J.J. Redick. I dig this guy the way he coaches. I dig this guy the way that he motivates. I love the fact that UConn has this guy, and I know that UConn's going to make a strong move when it comes to the Big East tournament. Now, again, with that move and them dropping that game to Marquette, they do not share the Big East regular season. St. John's ends up winning that. We'll talk more a little bit later on about Rick Pitino, but I loved watching Dan Hurley yesterday. By the way, his brother over at Arizona State also gets teed up and at the same time. So when you're a Hurley, they remind me a little bit of the Harbaugh brothers. These guys are like fists with mouths, and you know you're going to get him. He goes, now, I don't believe I bumped the ref. I was chirping in his ear. Hurley was ejected in the final seconds of Saturday's loss to Marquette after receiving 2 technical fouls. Forget this, in quotes, aggressively confronting a game official. If that's not Bob Knight at its best, I don't know what is, man. I love watching great characters, and I loved watching Bob Knight. The chair going across the floor in the Purdue game back in the day. Bob Knight getting in people's ears. Now you also have Dan Hurley. Dan Hurley, I mean, he's not quite Jim Calhoun, but like I said, he's a combination between Norman Dale and Bob Knight. How do you not love those kind of characters? Do you remember those great days of the Big East when you had John Calipari and you had guys that were in the Big East like Louis Cardaseca, and you had John Thompson, and you had all those great coaches that were in the Big East back in the day, the Rollie Massiminos, who had those great personalities that would transcend that league and make the Big East back in the day one of the greatest conferences of all time. I grew up on that Big East. I loved watching Louis Cardaseca and John Thompson go back and forth. And to see Dan Hurley and what he's doing now and how he runs that basketball program, Stores is in good hands with Dan Hurley. Again, I love the fact that the way he coaches, I just dig it. All right, don't forget my great friends at Morgan & Morgan, the #1 injury law firm in all of America, with over $20 billion recovered for clients. Make no mistake about it. They are family-owned and family-run. Hey, the family in Pennsylvania that was initially offered $650,000 on a settlement ended up getting nearly $30 million. Or the family down in Florida who was initially offered $350K, they ended up getting nearly $12 million. Go to forthepeople.com/big sales or pound law 529. That's forthepeople.com/big sales or pound law 529. We're going to talk some baseball, Major League Baseball, World Baseball Classic with Donnie Rightside next here on SportsGrid. I know I'm in the right place now because we're talking passion. And if you're talking passion, you're talking Philadelphia zone, Donnie Rightside. And we were just talking in the break here, man. You're a huge Eagle fan. And we were talking about Jerome Brown and the passionate fans here. And I got to ask you right out of the gate here. I think, Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter may actually be in that same category here with Jerome Brown. I mean, nobody's going to be in Reggie White's league, but before we get into baseball, would you make it a sign 3 years, 78 million, 65 guaranteed, 26 annual?
I'll tell you the interesting part about that, Dan, is, again, good to be on with you. Love to hear from you. Great stuff. We'll have some fun on this segment. But honestly, I actually misread it and thought it was Jalen Carter getting that absolute deal. And then I had to read it and say Jordan Davis at this point. Now, understand this. Jordan Davis coming into the NFL, a little bit overweight, a little bit oversized at this point, really worked his way in. But the one thing, Dan, that I always get caught up on is when the cap goes up every year, the first numbers that come out, we immediately say to ourselves, that's way of an overpay. And I heard you talking, once we get some of those contracts, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, in the legal tampering period, you're going to see some astronomical numbers. But I do know this. You can't pay your entire defensive line hundreds of millions of dollars. Usually one guy gets that, and one guy's going to get left out. It'll be interesting to see what happens with Jalen Carter. I like the signing, but it is a shocking number, isn't it?
Do you think also then that means that Howie Roseman, the GM of the Eagles, then, you think he punts on Jalen Phillips? Because Jalen Phillips is going to command somewhere in the neck of like $26 to $27 million. And like you just said, you can't pay everybody because you still got Jalen Carter's deal on the table. Do you think he punts on him this week?
He wants to come back, but it's, again, you can't afford everybody is what we're looking at. And also understand this, you got two really good defensive backs that are going to break the bank as well, where when you draft so well, the penalty is, Dan, you got to pay everybody, or else you can't keep everybody. I heard you talk about Milton Williams. They'd love to keep Milton Williams around, but how much money he got from the New England Patriots, you can't do it. Here's the interesting part. I thought Jalen Phillips was a holding piece just in case they reached out and got Max Crosby, because then you would have said, well, we're going to pay Crosby with a new contract extension, Dan, $30+ million. There's no money left over. The one thing we know about the Eagles, they love the shell of it. The defensive ends and the cornerbacks get the big time money here. And now you say, wait a second, we got two defensive tackles, one we just signed, one we need to pay. Jalen Phillips was a good move last year because you thought you might get back and win the Super Bowl. Now they didn't do that. Is he worth, let's just say a guy might get 7 or 8 sacks and pay him $20+ million with all those open holes? And we're talking about in the future too, Dan, that offensive line for the Philadelphia Eagles, it's not getting any younger and it's not getting any less injured either.
Absolutely. Big year where they had a lot of injuries a year ago here. So let's go over to baseball and drop a bun here. A lot of passion in the World Baseball Classic. Are you enjoying watching it?
I'll tell you what the interesting part is. Like, we're just coming off of the Olympics, Dan, which was so emotional, and, Canada and the United States. The world really has caught up to us in Major League Baseball passion-wise and probably passed over us here. You see the Dominican teams, the stands, the Puerto Rican stands, they are absolutely phenomenal. But then when I watch, Dan, and yes, Team USA has some excitement down in Houston, it's kind of more quiet at this point, but I do think as you start to move through and you play the better teams, that passion will rise as well, where you're going to see the stands, more action in the stands, Dan, maybe than on the field. I'm enjoying it here. I'm just waiting for the level of competition to rise for the U.S. team.
How about this? Would you be in favor of LA 28 having the Major League Baseball players play in the Olympic Games? Because you just mentioned it. I had a lot of pride coming out of the Olympics watching what the hockey team did in Milan. Would you be a fan of that?
See, I would be a fan of it, Dan, but I love Major League Baseball so much. And we know this, being in the content business. If you're going to take away 3 weeks of my Major League Baseball in the summer for the Olympics, Dan, I don't know what I'm going to do at this point. So I'm going to be selfish and say, I don't want them playing in the Olympics. I'd rather them be in the WBC. But Bryce Harper, right here in Philadelphia, basically said the point that everybody talks about as well. Everybody watches the Olympics. And yes, the WBC is a nice trophy to have. But boy, Dan, that Olympic gold medal for a Major League Baseball player to cap off an MVP in a World Series, they really want that, and it's going to be hard to keep them out. But for me being selfish, Dan, I don't want it to happen. I don't know what I would do with myself in the summer.
How about this, though? Bobby Valentine was on last week, and he suggested this, Donnie, having the baseball players play in the winter games so it doesn't conflict with the regular season, and put that in the winter game so that if you had any kind of injuries or any kind of issues with players, you can recover a little bit. Then you get yourself ready for the spring. What would be your takeaway on that?
You know, it's almost like an even trade, too, because there's a lot of talk about the Winter
Yeah.
Olympics. And yes, ice hockey is a Winter Olympics game where if you flip that to the summer games during the off season, you can pay attention to a little bit more. It's from the purest standpoint. Oh, you can't do that, Dan. You know, the Winter Olympics are the Winter Olympics in the summer or not. But if you're going to talk about money moves everything, the amount of eyeballs that would be back on the Olympics in the summer because everybody will be able to play and still have that NHL season and to do with baseball, dollars make sense. And it really does. I actually wouldn't mind that, to be honest.
Okay, so if you're a general manager or you're a manager, are you concerned because Ken Holland was on the show a couple weeks ago and we talked to him because he lost a couple guys in the Olympic Games. Are you concerned about some of the guys' arms, especially the pitching side of this thing, having these guys in this World Baseball Classic?
I am. Me being a Phillies fan, like you see, like, and they get not really anybody pitching from their end of it there that's going to be starting on the U.S. team. I know Aaron Nola's with the Canada team. But when I say, like, I hope they do well, but I hope Bryce Harper stays home and Schwarber stays home because I know they're not going to get injured. So those things that you worry about, and we've seen big-time closers for the Mets, like Diaz, go down at the worst possible times. I do worry about that. But then all of a sudden, Dan, we're starting to talk about, Tarek Skubal. I'll give you about 60 pitches here that I'm going home. Then he's around the boys. And you've been in locker rooms, Dan. Like, once you get that camaraderie, like, you know what, Skip? I can give you an extra 3 innings. Heck, you need me to start the championship game to get there? I'll stick around for that as well. But I do worry about the arms, absolutely.
Okay, I'm going to give you Team USA, Japan, or the Dominicans versus the field. Who would you take?
Well, if you gave me those three, one of those three is going to win it. But to be honest with me, give me the Dominican and give me the Japanese. The reason I say that is I like the plus 360 price and the 4-1 price better than I do the minus 115. Dan, even if I think USA wins it, give me the plus money every time. It's a single elimination once they get there, not a best of 7 where the talent winds out. Give me the plus money numbers. I'll take those.
I have to ask you about Shohei Ohtani. He is just in a category himself, Donnie. He's a guy that just in 30 seconds here, how great a player do you think this guy was going to be at the end of it?
I know we get caught up, Dan, in recency bias, but who's doing it like he is at his age and still goes? The joke that we always run is as long as he pitches and hits, and this morning talking about pro baseball today with Tom Vecchio, if he hits 35 home runs and pitches to a 4 ERA, he's still the best player in baseball. Dan, you tell me he's going to pitch for another 5 years at the level he can pitch and hit at that point. He is the most talented baseball player we've ever seen in Major League Baseball history. That's not recency bias. That's just looking at your eyes and saying, yeah, that makes sense.
And he's doing things that Babe Ruth did back in the day, but he's doing it at the same time. We are going to talk some Major League Baseball with Donnie Rightside and get his thoughts on what he sees coming out of the World Baseball Classic. Can anybody beat the Dodgers? Keep it right here on SportsGrid. really love the fact that many of the guys at SportsGrid are Hurricane fans. Donnie Rightside here with us right now, and he told me growing up there, man, he's a big-time Miami Hurricane fan. Going back to the days, Donnie, thanks for doing this for me, man. I really appreciate it. And you loved those Hurricanes back in the day, no?
I'm telling you, a wider shot of my background. Like, there's a lot of Hurricane stuff out there. You got Sebastian the Ibis in the background over here and stuff like that. I can't tell you how many jerseys. If I said my all-time favorite Hurricane, even though I grew up in the 80s, it was really Santana Moss. Like, I was a wide receiver in college. That was my guy, him and Reggie Wayne. But I got to tell you right now, never been more devastated. In the area where I grew up, Dan, which is Selden, New Jersey, big Penn State country. Puffing my chest out. We are going to hammer Penn State in the Fiesta Bowl. I was never more devastated in my life to watch all those interceptions and Giftopoulos intercepting us in the red zone here. Devastating night, but turned out okay the next couple of years, though. Got a couple titles under our belt, huh?
I will tell you this. First play of the game, I sacked the quarterback for a 15-yard loss. We held those guys to 7 first downs and 140 yards in total offense. And, Donnie, we lost. 14-10, 14-7. We gave up only 7 first downs, and get this, I think we had 7 penalties, 7 turnovers in the game. We had as many turnovers as we gave up first downs in that ball game. One of the most devastating losses for Jimmy Johnson and all of us. The next year we would go on to win the national title, though.
Absolutely. And also, but I got to ask you, do you still have the fatigues when you came off the plane?
I do.
Was it like a lunch? Was it a dinner that week where you guys showed up and like, you know what, we're out of here this night. It's time to do bit. Like that 86 team was so talented top to bottom. It should have been a rollover, but they say that's why they play the game. Did Vinny fall off the scooter too a couple weeks before that, Dan? What happened on that?
He did. He fell off the scooter in the East Carolina game, and he was supposed to play. He was supposed to. He won the Heisman Trophy the next week, and so I used to wear fatigues all the time to the games, Donnie. And so they finally said this. They go, "Why don't we come off the airplane? Let's go to Army Navy store, and what we're going to do is we're going to go and get all these guns and all." You can't do this stuff today, obviously. Can you imagine social media too? Here we are, us knuckleheads, walking off the airplane in battle fatigues, guns in our hand, fake grenades, and we're walking off. And then we get to that roast we had, and we get to that dinner. Jerome Brown does the most incredible thing of all time. He gets up, Donnie, and he says this. He goes, "Did the Japanese sit down before they bombed Pearl Harbor?" I looked over at Jerome and I went, "The Japanese lost the war, dude. We don't want that analogy." It was great memories, though, Donnie. I'm glad to see that you're a Hurricane fan. Yeah. All right, let me get over to baseball here and drop a bun here. Now, I just asked you the World Baseball Classic, Dodgers and that $401 million payroll versus the field. Who do you got?
Normally you would say the field, but understand what happened last year as well, Dan. Like the Dodgers were absolutely locked and loaded to start the season. They didn't finish with the best record in baseball. Matter of fact, they were 3rd overall in record-wise just in the NL. Here's the issue you have. You just have to, it's not like the NBA, because they take the regular season a lot more seriously in Major League Baseball than they do the NBA. But if you're the Dodgers, you just want playoff positioning, because 2 things happen, Dan. If things aren't going your direction over the first half of the season, the trade deadline comes up. Who has the most prospects and who has the most money? It's the Dodgers. Let me get the best pitcher on the market, the best closer on the market, or the best hitter on the market. But then when you get down and it really condenses once you get to the playoffs, their starting lineup 1 through 9 is incredible. Their bench is very deep. Their bullpen, who was an Achilles heel last year, is now one of the more dominant bullpens in Major League Baseball through free agency. And let's not understand this. Their starting pitching staff 1 through 5 is incredible. Where now, Dan, they're going, we'll use 3 of these starters and put 2 of these guys in the bullpen. You're saying, we have Cy Young caliber players coming in the 7th and 8th inning to shut this down on top of an already dominant bullpen. I know it's hard to look at the Dodgers at a plus 210 price and say, I'll take the field, which you probably should do. But when it's all said and done, once you get to the playoffs, the Dodgers are still going to be a heavy favorite. It's hard to go against them. The money's there. The product is there. And, oh, yeah, they're used to winning. It's not like, oh, they haven't gotten over the hump yet. Back-to-back World Series championships. Looking to do it a 3rd time, Dan, is incredible.
Absolutely. And the only team that really has won back-to-back with World Series in the National League, I think it's that Big Red Machine, a 75 and 76. It's the last time that's happened. I can't remember a team that's won 3 straight in the National League. I know it's happened in the American League. You know, a guy that kind of gets hidden a little bit because of Shohei Ohtani and Aaron Judge is Cal Raleigh in Seattle. Here's a guy that's looked at as the best defensive player in all of Major League Baseball, Donnie. And this guy hit 60 bombs as a switch hitter a year ago. How good in 30 seconds here do you think Seattle is? And do you think they can win the American League this year?
Yes, they can, because their pitching is so strong where every single day on the mound, Dan, they're probably going to have the better pitcher. The lineup is legit as well. But getting back to the Cal Raleigh point, sometimes we look at these things and go, yeah, a DH hit 60 home runs because he's rested. You talk about a shortstop can hit 60 home runs. Okay, we play shortstop, or an outfielder. How can you be a catcher? If anybody out there says, you know what, let me go catch for a kid down the street, it'd be hard to stay in that stance, Dan, for 30 seconds, let alone for 162 plus games, then into the playoffs. What he did last year was so amazing. It's a shame he didn't win it because Aaron Judge was the true MVP. But Cal Raleigh's last year as a catcher, one of the best seasons you're ever going to see.
Absolutely. And then remember this too, Donnie, that pitch that hits the glove and makes that hand a little bit weaker, and all those weak flies to right there. Hey, Donnie, thank you so much, my friend.
Great stuff.
I appreciate you. Catch you again. Ed Orgeron will join us next. College football is going into spring practices right now, and you're going to see a lot of teams getting themselves ready for the upcoming 2026 season. My Hurricanes are already in camp. They're already in spring practice. Florida Gators are also in spring practice right now, and I tell people this all the time. This is where championship football is made now in the spring. And in today's college football, you've got to have yourselves, again, a football coach that knows that if your football team is coming into the season and going into the spring right now, make sure you understand this. The guys that you see on that roster, that head football coach has consistently got to even recruit the guys that he has on his football team right now. Make no mistake about it. When you look at building a football team and getting the guys into your respected program, this is now a 24/7 operation when it comes to bringing guys into your program. When you go out and you recruit, you got to understand college football is so much more about recruiting right now. And it is so much more about building your roster up. You've got NIL, you've got transfer portal, and every single team right now can really build their football team. And we're going to talk to Coach Orgeron now, and we're going to bring him in here with us here. We appreciate him coming aboard with us. Coach, how you doing? Thanks so much for doing this.
Man, hey, Dan, it's a great Sunday when I can talk to you, my friend.
You bet here, Coach. Coach, I was just talking about NIL and transfer portal. How much do you think it's changed the game?
A bunch. It's a different game, and it's going to be a different team every year. Look at what Indiana did. Look what Mario's doing. He's doing a great job. But you know what? every year you're going to have to replace your roster. There's going to be a new team every year, and that's why you're going to see some inconsistencies in play. You know this. And we were talking the other day, Gino Torretta, Casey Jones, and all those guys, they were talking about redshirt year and living in the dorm together. Then, as you know, those days are gone. But look at Lane Kiffin. He may have like 48 new players on his football team, which is good. But you know that. You got to develop chemistry. You got to develop camaraderie amongst your team. There's a lot of work to be done.
Coach, tell me this, though, and you just mentioned it. You know, when I was at UM, I mean, we had Cortez Kennedy, Russell Maryland. We had all these guys behind us back in the day, but those guys went through the ropes with us. They went through the progressions of what it was like to be a Hurricane, and we built that locker room up to where expectations and culture was important for us. How do you do that today if you're a coach?
You know, I don't think it's going to be as strong as it was in the past. Now, if you can build your roster with young guys, all right, let's say you're the University of Miami, then you know this, you can Broward and Dade County, okay? Hey, you get some young guys in there and you teach them the Hurricane way, and then you go out of state and get potential first-round draft choice like yourself, like Cortez Kennedy, like Russell Maryland, you can do it. I know Mario's going to be able to. You got to be in a big school that has a big feeder system within a radius of your hometown that you can do that.
Coach, how important was getting the Duke quarterback Mensa in there for Mario? You know, last year they went out and they got Carson Beck. I mean, this kid was a damn good player. He won the ACC this past season with Duke. And how good is that? And again, I think the kid looks like he may be even better. What are you looking at with this Hurricane team? Now, you got to replace Bain and you got to replace Messidor on the other side of that football line. That's the defensive side. Yeah. How do you think they're going to look this year?
I think the quarterback's really good. I watched him as a freshman. My son coaches at Tulane. I watched him. So I watched him a bunch, Dan. I think he's tremendous, and I think he's gotten better. And you know what? With that number 10 that they have, he's going to win the Heisman one day. He is tremendous. They're going to get him the football. And the way Mario likes to run the football, he's got everything in place that he wants to. Obviously, he's going to have to replace those two great ends. But I think he's going to find a way to have a great defense like we've always done at UM, and he's on the right track.
Absolutely. Coach, I got to ask you about LSU and Lane Kiffin. Why is that a great job? By the way, they finally got that AD out of there, who obviously I'm not a fan of, because anybody who treats Coach O I'm not a fan of, and I'm glad that guy got his ass fired. So why is this a good job, and do you believe Lane can win a national championship at LSU?
First, I do believe he will. Yeah, I do believe he'll do very well. Lane is on top of his game right now. He's doing a tremendous job. The job that he did at Ole Miss is unbelievable. I've been there. And for him to have 5, 10-win seasons in a row, and that, you know, Dan, I went and watched Ole Miss play against Miami. What a roster he had. That running back, man, and that number one, that receiver that he had, the players that he had was phenomenal. So, you know what? The state of Louisiana is loaded, okay? But you have to dig in now. You know, hey, Justin Jefferson was a 2-star. You know, hey, you got to go out and you got to dig and find those guys. Jamar Chase was going to Florida. You can't let him leave. You know, so that those elements are still there. But they're going to give him all the tools that he needs to be successful. But you have to start with Louisiana first.
Coach, I used to get a pamphlet in the mail, and it was from Bloomington. I'd start laughing, and I would use it kind of for like my dog's, you know, where my dog could go to the bathroom back in the day. I can't believe they're 16-0. Bloomington is now the defending national champion. Boy, that's a hell of a job that Curt Cignetti has done. You know, just expand on that a little bit. It's amazing. I don't think, Coach, people realize how insane of a job of coaching that was there in Bloomington.
You know what? I didn't realize it until I watched them play in person. I went to the national championship game, and then the way they played with precision, and the way their defenses played, the way their corners played press coverage and challenged every ball, the underneath coverage broke on routes. They knew where the ball was going before the ball was thrown. They were very well coached, and you know what? They fought, they competed. those guys, to go 15-0, you have to be a great football team. And plus, Mendoza made it. You know what I'm saying? He made everything with those big receivers they had. But, Cignetti does a tremendous job of making those guys do the right thing and play disciplined football. I think that's the difference.
How about this, Coach? We had a lot of guys transfer in. I think it was 13 guys that transferred in from James Madison. To me, the encore is going to be like the important thing to keep an eye on here, right? I mean, it's one thing to recruit a great class. It's another thing, like you guys did at getting that great class after class after class after class like Jimmy did. How hard is that going to be going forward for him? And what's the encore?
Well, I do believe this, that they got a bad taste in their mouth, and which is good, as you know. And, they're not satisfied with being number 2. I know that. I know Mario, I know him well. So I think they're going to show up to spring practice a little pissed off. I know I will, and I'll be there. I'll be there first day with them, And but you know what? They were so close, and they tasted it. So those guys know that with hard work, they can attain a national championship. And I do believe he's going to be close to winning one.
Absolutely. Coach, we're going to talk a little bit more about college football here. And I got to tell you, like you said, after we ended up getting beat in 1986 in the Fiesta Bowl, we had a bad taste in our mouth going into that 87 year, and we ended up going on and winning a national championship. And I will tell folks this, as we move on here into the next block here, you're looking at the greatest recruiter, in my opinion, in the history of college football. Those Southern Cal teams were built by Coach O when he was there with Pete Carroll. That 2001 team that we had when he was at the University of Miami, many of those guys were built by this man, and we're going to continue the conversation with truly one of the greatest recruiters of all time. And maybe he wants to get back in the game. I want to see if Coach O wants to get back to coaching again and get back in the game. We're going to do this next with one of the legendary coaches, former national champion coach at LSU, Ed Orgeron. We'll do that next. Keep it right here on SportsGrid.
You wouldn't have your ex officiate your wedding.
Do you, Jake? Liar? Cheater? Gaslighter?
So why have anyone but America's largest injury law firm handle your injury case? With over $30 billion recovered for our clients, there's a reason to go big.
Gaslighter, coitus crier, he's got more red flags than a bullfighter's attire.
Morgan & Morgan, America's largest injury law firm.
How much do you think tanking is hurting the NBA right now, too, and what we're seeing, like we saw with that Jazz and Orlando game a week ago? How much do you think that's hurting the game?
I can't wait until professional sports in the United States adopts a European model, especially like a Premier League model, and they start doing relegation. The day you start doing relegation, everything changes. Everything will change.
Outspoken with Dan Sileo, only on SportsGrid.
I actually, and I ended up adding this since our show started here, Rohit, but his points prop tonight at 20.5 is the same number from the Iowa State game. That's a bit of a mistake, right? When we consider the gap in opponents here. I think Peterson specifically steps up. He needs to. I think he kind of owes this team a great performance.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
I know that Florida lost at home to Auburn, and it's a real thing that happened. So you can't strike it from the record. But if you did, I think Florida's looked like the best team in college basketball for about 2 months. And I think there are a bunch of results that suggest that.
College basketball today, only on SportsGrid.
We're going to continue our conversation here with one of the legendary coaches, one of the greatest recruiters of all time, Ed Orgeron. He joins us now here, former national champion head coach at LSU. And, Coach, we were just talking about those days at UM. I mean, I was talking to Brent Musburger how much, how much it would cost to have our football teams back in the day. In the 80s here, how much the payroll would be. And I'm like, you know what? I don't know. I think Big Sills would have a pizzeria on every corner in Hialeah. So, I mean, Coach, how about, just so deep back in the day when we had those great defensive linemen.
Man, when I came to the University of Arkansas, and when I got to Miami, and I got that on that field, and I saw those defensive linemen work, and how big they were, and how fast they moved, I said, my God, this is what defensive linemen ought to look in college football, and kept on coming. But the big thing, Dan, that I got is how to evaluate defensive line from Jimmy Johnson. Hey, look, man, they didn't come prefab now. They were 350. Hey, when Russell Maryland walked in from Chicago, I think Chicago State or somebody had offered him a scholarship. And Jimmy looked, you remember Hubbard Alexander, right? And Jimmy
Yes.
looked at Hubbard and said, Hubbard, are you kidding me? Hubbard said, just trust me, Jimmy. You're going to lose a little weight. Hey, and Russell Maryland, Cortez Kennedy, he comes in, he's 350. He runs the 110 test, passes out. Coach Johnson kicks him off the field. He's on the PAT field goal team his first year at UM. So everybody had to develop. Warren Sapp, he was a tight end. Nobody came prefab, man. But you know what? Jimmy saw something in those guys, the quickness, the size, the girth, the toughness, that we can develop those linemen. And that was, for me as a young coach, so important for me to learn.
Coach, one of the things that I go back and look at, like you just said, I mean, Jerome Brown and I were 290-pound guys back in the 1980s like that, running 4.8s. People didn't do that back then. People were a lot slower, and Jimmy had nothing but speed on that side of the ball. And, he moved us all around. I was a linebacker. I beefed up to 285 pounds. Jerome was over 300 pounds. That just was something that you didn't see. And what I used to love was that they put this film together, and they put this training tape together of Jerome and I. And what they would do is they would teach all the guys that would come after us and how to play. And it became something that we were so proud of, and how we taught how to position of defensive tackle and how to play the position.
Dan, I spent Saturday and Sunday morning with Cortez Kennedy and Russell Maryland and Coral Gables watching that film. I know that film by heart, I promise you. Hey, I worked it so many times, I had to re-splice it. That's when you had to splice the film. It would break. I'd re-splice it. But you know what? Hey, thank y'all for doing that, because we watched y'all and we became like. And then after the defensive lineman that came in, watched Cortez and Russell, and Sapp became like. And then they watched Sapp, and on and on and on. And I brought those training tapes with me to USC. I brought those training tapes with me to LSU, and they were most valuable.
Wow, that's great to hear. Coach, let's get into some of the kids that we're going to see in 26. How good do you think Arch Manning will be this coming year? And probably smart for him to come back to Austin. Do you think he and Texas will be the preseason favorites because of Arch Manning coming back?
I see a lot of great in Arch Manning, myself personally, okay? I know he struggled at the beginning of the year, but he came on. And everybody has to develop. You know that. Hey, think about Joe Burrow, okay? The beginning of his senior year, he was projected a 6th round draft pick, okay? And that's after playing a year at LSU. So Arch still has some developing to do, but he does have the potential to be a great player, okay? I don't know about, can Texas get over the hump? Can they develop some physical toughness? Can they win the big game? They're going to have to prove that to me. I have not seen that with Texas yet.
Speaking of Joe Burrow, you had Joe Brady with you as the OC for Burrow there at LSU when you were there. Impact do you think he has on and has had on Josh Allen and what he does with that football team with the Bills.
Tremendous play caller, tremendous game plan guy, very smart, has a lot of energy. I think he's going to do a great job with the Bills. He did a great job for us. Think about this, Dan. He brought the LSU Tigers, okay, from 22 personnel running the power, 21 personnel running the lead, play action pass to the spread offense, and scored almost 50 points a game. Okay, so along with Steve Ensminger, that was a phenomenal job of turning this ship around to the spread offense. He's very smart. He's very talented. Now, he's going to have some great coaches around him, especially on defense, and it looks like he has those guys.
Coach, here's a dream of mine. I'm going to go to bed tonight. I'm going to close my eyes, and I'm going to dream of this. Ed Orgeron, Jimmy Johnson, all of our coaches all together. We take your national champion LSU team. We take those Hurricane teams, my 86, 87, maybe the 2001 team. We play a little football there. No one's watching. We just turn the lights on, and we go play us some 60 minutes of football. I'll tell you what, I think your football team that you built in LSU, I think it's right there with our Hurricane team, and I think our Hurricane team is right there with what you built at LSU. Those are some of the greatest football teams of all time, those three teams.
There's no question. Then I'll say this, okay? The offense that we had was very explosive.
Yes.
Look at what Joe's doing.
It was better than the Vinny one. It was better than the Vinny one.
But the defenses that we had at UM, we were not even close to those defenses. And look, I love our defense, but we were not that good. And the defensive lines that we had and the talent that we had, think about this. We had six players, 1989, 6 defensive linemen drafted in the first 2 rounds. Come on, man.
Coach, you're right. And those were my backups back in the day. I mean,
hey,
right?
Hey, Dan, and check it out. After they graduated, we had a young guy named Warren Sapp show up.
Unbelievable, Coach. And also, too, The Rock was there at the time. Coach, thank you so much for doing this always for me. It's going to be a great season. Have a great time at Canes practice. Tell Mario I said hi. I love you, Coach. Thank you so much.
Love you, man.
Sileo says next. to kiss up to some of my bosses here at SportsGrid, but all the great Italians have an O in the last name, and they have it at the very end of the name here. By the way, all the great Italians have an O at the end of their name. They're De Niro, Marino, Pacino, yes, Sileo. I'll leave it there, but then I'm going to add another one. Rick Pitino. He does it again. Every single program that this guy goes to, he absolutely makes a massive influence on that program. Whether it's Providence or going to Kentucky, winning a national championship there, what he did at Louisville, look what he's now done at St. John's. For the first time in program history, they're going back-to-back Big East champions. Not even the great Louis Carnesecca did this. Mr. Sweater himself couldn't get this done. And what does he do? He goes there and he puts his stamp on this program, and you know how he does it? With toughness. The way he coaches this basketball program, the way he recruits, the type of kid he recruits. I've talked to Rick Pitino before on the type of guy he gets into his programs. And he has said this numerous times. I look at everybody, Dan. I like guys. I'm going to go out there and find the right guys that I think fit my program. I may recruit everybody, but at the end of the day, guess what? I'm going to take a special kid, and I'm going to take a kid that's going to be coached and learns how to be coached. And you know what that means? I'll give you a lesson here about how I was coached by Jimmy Johnson. I used to say this all the time to him, and he would come up to me and start coaching me. I'm sitting there, and we're listening to how you play a proper technique, left tackle, right tackle. I'd start sitting there looking at him, and I go, why are you always on my ass? Coach Johnson looked at me and said, son, worry when I'm not. Right then and there, I realized when a coach is on you like this, he's taking time because he's looking at you because he sees potential. Every time I see a coach that coaches people hard, that to me is a sign that that coach cares. That's old school. Can you imagine the guys today, all the players today who can't be coached like that? And if you get in a kid's face or you get in someone's ass trying to make them better, you know what they do? Many of these kids end up transferring. You don't build the fundamentals that you need to have when it comes to really battling through adversity. Adversity is where you get better. This is what Rick Pitino, this is what Jimmy Johnson, these are what some of these coaches try to instill in some of their players. Look, it takes a special breed to play at St. John's. It took a special breed to play at the University of Miami. These guys were coached hard. We were constantly coached hard. We were coached hard mentally, and we were constantly coached hard physically. One of the most important things that Coach Johnson always told us back in the day at UM was, hey, listen, guys, your body, it will not give out before your mind will. These are some of the greatest coaches of all time, training your minds. And this is what Pitino does. Again, here you're looking at it here. His team got blown out a couple of weeks ago, and now he is the outright champion. And the outright champion because UConn got beat by Marquette. And again, I mean, kudos to him for the first time in history of that program, that storied program in Jamaica, Queens. Rick Pitino has gone back-to-back Big East champions. That's an old school style of play, too, when you watch that St. John's team play. It reminds you of the old Big East. I grew up on the Big East, and I loved watching Big East basketball when you had John Thompson, and you had Rolly Massimino, and you had all these guys in there. Look at where the Big East now is, too, with the style of coaches that they have. So you got Dan Hurley, who gets he gets ejected from the game because he gets into a ref's ass there on the sidelines. Then you got Rick Pitino, who's also gets up there with his white suits, and the way that he is with his program and how he coaches his program, I just love it. It reminds me of old school Big East. Dan Hurley and Rick Pitino. Got to give it up, though, the coach. Congratulations to him. I mean, doesn't matter if he's at Providence. It doesn't matter if he's at Kentucky. The job that he did at Louisville and how he built that basketball program and how they would go on to win a national championship there too. He is not for the faint of heart. And that's why that program right now, how far they can go in the tournament is yet to be determined. Can they be an Elite 8 team? Can they be a Sweet 16? Can they be a Final Four team? as long as you have Rick Pitino, you got an opportunity at winning yourself a national championship. And like I said, all the great Italians, not to kiss up to anybody in particular at SportsGrid here, but they always end in O. So congratulations to you, Rick Pitino, and getting yourselves back-to-back Big East champions. I'm going to ask Rohit Panaya. I'll get his thought how far he thinks the St. John's team can go. A lot of news from this past weekend when it came to college basketball. UNC and Duke also. Duke takes care of business, and they look like they're going to be a tough team to deal with when they get into the NCAA tournament and the ACC champion. Remember, Italians at end and O. Rohit Panaya next. Hour number 2 here on All right, so here we are. We're just scooting through this. We're here in hour number 2 here with Rohit Panaya here. And you were just talking about, here we are. We're at the last regular season weekend of college basketball. But first and foremost, I got to ask you about UFC 326. What'd you make of the card last night?
I really liked it. I thought there were some good fights. The previous pay-per-view event had a lot of lopsided lines. Last night, we saw a lot of closer lines. We saw live dogs. We saw some good scraps, maybe not as many finishes as some people would like, but I thought there were some good scraps on there. I was happy, and I was very impressed with Charles Oliveira and his ability to just put on a grappling masterclass.
We're getting news now that John Jones and Conor McGregor are not going to be there for that June 14th at the White House. How do you look at that card coming up there? It's President Trump's birthday. We know he likes to put his stamp on everything there, but not having those two guys on the card where they were told that maybe, or we were told maybe that they would be on that card. What's the impact of them not being there?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's huge because I think fans definitely had this, these high expectations for the card. But at the same time, I think if you really follow the sport, both of those guys have been extremely unreliable. You can't trust them to anchor a card. What are you going to do? Put them on at the bottom of the card, hope they don't, hope Conor makes weight, hope John Jones is even ready to fight. You can't do that with how those guys have been, especially Conor. I mean, Conor, it's been forever since he's fought, and he hasn't seemed disciplined at all. You see all these images like that Michael Chandler fight just never happened because he just couldn't, get ready for it. And it's like, you can't trust those guys on a card of this stature. At the same time, I'm more disappointed with some of the matchups they did make. Sean O'Malley going off against, a Canadian guy that I really like, but that's just a bad matchup. I mean, no one's been asking for that. Sean O'Malley, Corey Sandhagen has been, the fight to make for years. has never happened. Both American guys. That made a lot of sense. For whatever reason, that didn't happen either. So, it's some of the other fights in the card that I'm a little bit more disappointed with than the absence of Jones and McGregor.
How about this? Let me ask you one last question here on John Jones. When you can't show up to the octagon, I mean, you got problems in your career. I mean, how much has he left on the table? Because people call him the greatest of all time, the greatest UFC. And I've heard Dana say that. He's the greatest guy that we've ever had at UFC. You think he's underachieved or overachieved as a fighter for the UFC?
I think given the caliber of how talented he is, what a physical specimen he is, and just his overall skill set. I mean, this guy's elite in every single aspect of fighting. You could maybe say he's underachieved, but the problem is he has just done so much. Like he has, the longest reign as a champion, only really losing the belt and that sort of thing when he kind of beat himself, getting popped for drugs, like hiding under the cage, doing all these things that hurt his reputation. So from that standpoint, he definitely underachieved. At the same time, he's achieved probably more than anybody else in the sport. So I think you still have to give him his flowers, but it's still disappointing because you look at his age. I mean, he's not that old, especially for a heavyweight, and he's just been so inactive over the last 4 or 5 years. He could have really put a stamp on his career by winning the belt from Cyril Gane and then going on to defend the belt, 2 or 3 times. But instead, he's just kind of had this wishy-washy end to his career, which definitely leaves a little bit of a bitter taste in my mouth. But I've got to give him his flowers. He's the greatest of all time, regardless of all those other things.
All right, let's do a bounce pass over to College Hugh. Rick Pitino, back-to-back for St. John's. How far can that team go, in your opinion?
I think they can go pretty far. I mean, the big thing for them is, their ability to force turnovers on defense, run everything through Zuby, because Zuby's just been such a presence down low, right? He's passing the ball for them. He's rebounding. He's scoring in the post. They have really good depth as well. It's really just going to come down to their shot makers and if they can make those big shots down the stretch. We saw them struggle in that area in March Madness last year. We saw them go insanely cold from the field against UConn the last time they played them. So, when those problems happen, it's like those things are going to crop up. Are you going to be able to grind out a win? But I do think St. John's is a team that strongly in the Sweet 16 picture, and Elite 8 is certainly not out of the question.
All right, so Norman Dale got thrown out of the game there for UConn. Excuse me, Dan Hurley. I mean, are you concerned? I mean, I'm watching Bobby Knight. I'm watching Norman Dale from Hoosiers, by the way. That's a Hoosiers reference. Are you concerned about UConn and all? They dropped this game to Marquette, and really, if they had won the game, they would have had a share with St. John's. Are you concerned with them going into conference play and into the NCAA tournament?
There has to be some concern because, this team doesn't certainly look as well-rounded as the teams that won titles, 3-4 years ago. But at the same time, I think that there's something to be said for almost under-aiding a team for, maybe because they lost, last night to a bad Marquette team. They also lost to a pretty bad Creighton team a couple of weeks ago. And those things, I think, are really kind of putting them down. But those are the positions where teams can lose games and let those ones get away. They tend to play up to their competition. We've seen that all season. They played against really good teams and played really well against them, even in close losses. So I think they will play up to a higher standard in the postseason tournament. And the fact that, their biggest issue has been fouling throughout the season, sending teams to the free throw line. Referees are more likely to swallow their whistle come tournament time. So I think that's definitely in their favor. And I think this is a bit buy low spot for them because the team how they performed yesterday was certainly not indicative of how good this team can be.
Miami of Ohio, they finish off the regular season 31-0. There's some people like Bruce Pearl that don't believe if they don't win their conference, they shouldn't go to the NCAA tournament. And Rohit, when you look at their schedule, there's not really, they're out of scheduled games or even poor. Yeah. How do you look at Miami of Ohio, 31-0?
Yeah, I think there's something to be said for still, having an unbeaten regular season. Even if they don't win the MAC title, I think they should get an at-large bid and make it to the tournament. At the same time, from a betting perspective, this is a team I can't wait to fade in the tournament, especially if you're just picking a bracket, because a lot of the casual fans, a lot of the more casual sports bettors are going to be riding them as underdogs, thinking they're going to be a Cinderella team. But as you mentioned, they haven't played anybody of note. They've barely been beating teams in the MAC over the last few weeks. And once they go up against, teams that are going to be more physical than them, can out-rebound them. I mean, this is a team that is terrible on the glass. Once they're going up against average teams, power conference teams in the tournament, they're going to get crushed on the glass and they're going to get overpowered. So I think this is a spot where I do think they deserve to be in the tournament, but I'm going to be looking to fade them once they get there.
All right, so Arkansas and John Calipari gets his 900th win. How far can they go? I really love this John Calipari Arkansas Razorback team, but I just don't know who they are. Who are they, in your opinion?
I think this is a team that can make a deep run, and I have a lot of faith in them. We saw Arkansas go, further than a lot of people expected last season. This is a much better team. I love Darius Acuff and what he can do as a point guard there. We know how important having a lead guard is in the tournament, and they might have, one of the best in the country. They can put up points against anybody, and defense sometimes is an issue, but when they really lock down and focus on the defensive end of the floor, they do have the athleticism to hang with teams. So I really like this team. This is a team that I think that people are sleeping on a little bit, but I think this is probably the second best team in the SEC, and I think they can make a pretty deep run in the playoffs, in the tournament.
How about this too here, Rohit? Is my Hurricanes, is that one of the better turnaround stories from a year ago to right now where you see them? I mean, I know they had a big win against Carolina a couple of weeks ago, but I mean, this has been a damn good job there down in Coral Gables right now. What do you make of my Hurricanes? Who are they?
Yeah, I think this is another team which, can make some noise in the tournament. I love their size down low. I love how they've turned this team over. I love how experienced they are as well, right? A lot of those guys, Malik Renault, Uday, True Washington, like those guys are all extremely experienced. They've just been on other teams. So when you have experience, you have size, you can go, make it, 2 or 3 rounds into the postseason. And I also just love this whole turnaround of the ACC. Because remember, everyone was down on the ACC a year or two ago, and now we see that there's some talented teams there. So it's not like Duke is just running through bad squads.
Absolutely. Hey, do not forget my great friends at Morgan & Morgan. John Morgan and Ultima Morgan built this company over 25 years ago because John Morgan's brother got injured on a job, and this has been a mission for this family. Morgan & Morgan, there is no firm like it. Folks, I tell you this all the time. Family-run, family-owned, with over $20 billion recovered. Morgan & Morgan is the #1 injury law firm in all of America for a reason. I tell you about the family in Florida there with $350K. They ended up getting $12 million in a settlement. Or the family in Pennsylvania got $650K. They nearly got $30 million. Go to forthepeople.com/big sales or pound law 529. That's forthepeople.com/big sales or pound law 529. We are going to talk some NBA with Rohit next. You keep it right here on SportsGrid. well, we just did a whole nother segment while we were in break here with Rohit Banaya. We're going to do some NBA here. And so, yeah, we were talking about Khabib here, but let's go over to the NBA right now, bounce the basketball there. So Jason Tatum comes back for the Celtics. You know, are you going to put him kind of, I'm going to use an analogy, a baseball analogy. Do you put him on a pitch count? Do you think they are bringing him back too soon? How do you think the Celtics should handle this? Because I believe, if I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong, he had 15 the other night. His impact, do you think he has on the Celtics?
He's having a huge impact on the team, and I think he is going to be on a pitch count. I don't think we're going to see him play back-to-backs. I think he played like 25, 26 minutes in the first game back. I don't think we're going to see him be logging more than 30. But at the same time, I don't think they rushed him back, or I don't think he rushed himself back, because I feel like, if he had wanted to do that, it would have maybe been in the playoffs or something like that. Coming back at this point in the season tells me that he is ready to perform. He certainly played well in that first game back. So, a lot of good things about that. And I think we have to remember that the Achilles tendon injury is one that have different timelines for different players. I think we all remember back when Kevin Durant a few years ago, missed a full year. And then people were like, maybe he'll come back, because that was the COVID year. People were like, maybe he'll come back in the summer when the NBA restarts. And he was like, no, I'm not ready. And everyone was very disappointed in that. But every Achilles tendon injury recovers differently. And I think Tatum is ready to go again, which we saw in the game back. And I think the Celtics are strongly the favorite to win the East now.
Do you agree, watching him come back and maybe playing a different role, maybe coming off the bench, like you said, maybe being on a pitch count? And you know what? And like you just said, also coming back from an injury like that, that's a 12-month injury. That's not an 8-month injury. Do you agree that tells you a little bit more about Jason Tatum and what he really means to that team and how that team means to him? Because, you can always get a sense, right? Some guys want to come back and they want to be the top dog. They want the basketball to go through him. But he's going to be more of a role player, it seems, right now, until he gets his feet wet. Tells me a little bit more about the player.
Yeah, and I think that's perfect for him, because he can do, everything. I mean, obviously he's a fantastic scorer, but he can, he passes, he rebounds. This is such a team-oriented squad. I love how Missoula has kind of, focused on this being a team, and you've got, Peyton Pritchard, you've got Derek, you've got Neemias Quetcha now who's like stepping up. You've got all these other pieces stepping up, and he just kind of adds to that overall picture. I think him being absent for a large chunk of the season really helped Jaylen Brown evolve as well. We've seen Brown play at an MVP level. So we know that Tatum doesn't have to be the main dog. I think he will be in the crunch time once the playoffs roll around, but especially towards the end of the season, this team is in very good shape. They don't need to give him a ton of minutes. They don't need him to be that number one guy right away. And I think he's more than comfortable being in, the number two role or more of a facilitatory role until he gets a little bit more comfortable.
Do you think the 76ers general manager, Daryl Morey, is overrated?
It's hard to say, because I keep thinking he's putting together a good team and then they just don't perform. So it's hard to say he's, overrated or underrated when the general manager's job is to put these guys together, right? And he is putting the guys together. It really starts to come down to coaching and whether or not those guys are really hungry. And I think the big question mark, of course, is Embiid. Is Embiid a winner? I don't think we've seen enough for to really know that. I mean, even when he is healthy, and then a lot of times he's not healthy. Paul George obviously has not worked out, and there's a lot of these pieces that just haven't really worked out. But the general manager's job is to put the right guys on the team, and I think you can't fault them for that, because they certainly have talent. They draft well. I mean, they picked up Maxey, number 20th pick in the first round. The Edgecombe pick was great this year. So you can't really fault the trades they've made, and you can't fault the picks they've made either.
You mentioned Embiid. Have we seen the best basketball played by him? He wins the MVP award, and all of a sudden he's just fallen off the planet. He looks like a speed cone out there at times. Like underneath the basket, he can't move. He can't go up and down the court. Do you think his best years are behind him?
Absolutely. He's still a skilled guy. He could score. He could shoot for a big man. But yeah, he doesn't have the ability to play above the rim anymore. He's not explosive anymore. He doesn't have that side-to-side quickness like he did. And, it's sad to say, but you do see this with a lot of these bigger centers who go through these lower body injuries. They come into this stage of their careers a little bit earlier than a lot of people would expect. Someone like Shaq, Shaq kind of hit his peak in his late 20s, and that was Shaq. And he was still a great player into his 30s. But his peak was, that the first few years with the Lakers. So it's really hard on your feet to be, a big man and have that sort of game. So yeah, I think we have seen the best of Embiid. Unfortunately, I think he's still a very good player, but he's certainly, there was an argument about him or Joker, who was the better center a few years ago. I think that answer or that question has been addressed.
Hey, Rohit, when Wemby came into the league, people were talking about his offensive exploits, but have you been impressed with the way he's played defense? I mean, for me, when you watch him defend, I think he's probably the best defender in the NBA right now. And the way he scores, they were down 25 the other night. He was playing on both sides of the floor. Now, listen, I'm going to make a comparison here, and I'm not going to say he's of that skill set yet, but that reminds me of Olajuwon running up and down the floor the way he runs. I don't know if he has the game of Akeem yet. Akeem developed as that went on more and more in his career. But, I mean, he seems to be a great defender. Is he the best defender in the game right now?
Yeah, absolutely. Not even close at this point. The impact he makes on both ends of the floor, the impact he makes protecting the rim, and he could also defend out. He could come out, he could defend guys around the perimeter as well. But the impact in terms of rim protection is just unreal. You can see how much it affects other teams. You can see how much better the Spurs are defensively with him in and out of the lineup. When he's off the floor, they're still one of the worst defensive teams in the league. With him in the lineup, they're arguably the best. So, yeah, I think this goes without saying. I bet him to win Defensive Player of the Year before the season. He was minus money before the season, and it was almost a bet just to see if he's going to play enough games to qualify for the award. Because at this point, I think as long as he stays healthy, he's going to be winning this award year in and year out for a while.
Do you agree here that maybe the most disappointing team has been Milwaukee, especially when you got a player of Giannis's skill set? Do you think that has been a disappointment in the East?
Yeah. I mean, definitely. But at the same time, I saw it coming. They picked up Dame, a year and a half ago because they needed a guard. And once that injury happened, once Dame was gone, we just knew they didn't have a lead guard, right? And we could see that this year. This is a major problem. Right now, who are they rolling at guard? I think Ryan Rollins is their point guard. They've got a good front. They added Miles Turner. Giannis, of course, is great there. But you need guards in the modern NBA, and they have one of the worst backcourts in the league. Definitely disappointing, but I think we could have seen this coming because Giannis can't do everything for them.
Absolutely. I thought they were going to end up moving in potentially to Golden State, and they didn't get that done. And boy, I'll tell you, I thought that basketball team would be a force in the Eastern Conference, but not. So, hey, Rohit, thank you so much, my friend. We're going to talk a little Kyler Murray. Where does he land next? We'll do that right here on SportsGrid. All right, NFL free agency is getting underway, and make no mistake about it, you're going to see a couple players that are going to be pursued once they hit free agency. Legal tampering starts on Monday, and you have the official free agency period beginning at 4 p.m. in Eastern time. One of the names is going to be Kyler Murray. Now, what we're going to do here is we're going to do the Big Sills predictions on where Kyler Murray may end up. Okay, now listen, one thing I'll say about him and why I think he's going to be somebody that will be pursued. He's going to make $36 million from the Arizona Cardinals. And get this, they're paying him that to go away. So you could sign him on a league minimum deal, which makes it very attractive. You're going to get a $40 million a year player for league minimum. How would you not want to go after a player like this? Now, listen, if you look at his numbers earlier in his career, first couple of years with Cliff Kingsbury, when Cliff Kingsbury was the head football coach, you name me another quarterback that's played well there in Arizona for the Bidwells outside of Kurt Warner and maybe Carson Palmer. Nobody. It's a poorly run organization. It's an organization that never gets the quarterback right. It's an organization that doesn't barely get anything right, to say the least. So, here are some of my predictions and where I think Kyler Murray ends up landing. Number one, I believe it's going to be the New York Jets. Now, I believe it's going to be the New York Jets because it's a very Jets thing to do. The New York Jets are poorly run, poorly owned. They never make decisions that are correct. And on top of that, I've said it before to you. Remember, the most famous New York Jets of all time, Joe Namath, one of the greats of all time. And then you got a guy that hits himself in the head with a hammer. His name is Fireman Ed. I mean, when those two guys are the New York Jets' most popular guys, a guy who hits himself in the head with a hammer and Joe Namath, the last time they had a player of any relevance, the guy landed on the moon in Neil Armstrong. So, I mean, the New York Jets, this is a perfect Jet signing a 5'9" quarterback. Let's go to number two. I've got the Minnesota Vikings coming in at number two. I mean, J.J. McCarthy, who in their right mind thought that stiff was good coming out of Michigan? Listen to what Minnesota did this past season. So Minnesota had Daniel Jones on the practice squad, the guy who's going to get a contract extension as the Colts are working out a new 3-year deal. They transition tagged him, which means he's going to make in essence of $48 million this year. That dude was on the Vikings practice squad. They also had Sam Darnold on the team. They told Sam Darnold, nah, that's okay, even though you went 14-3 and threw for 4,500 yards. They let him go to Seattle. What does Sam Darnold do? He wins the Super Bowl. And you're left with that stiff, J.J. McCarthy, who's just not healthy and not a very good quarterback. Could he land there? That's prick number two. Number three, now, you talk about another organization that can't get it right. This is the Miami Dolphins, run by Stephen Ross. Stephen Ross is arguably the worst owner in pro football. Look, he does a lot of good things right when it comes to the players. But let's take a look at the tanking for Tua and how that planned out. So you went 5 to 6 years tanking for Tua. You also passed on Justin Herbert. Okay? It cost you a general manager in Chris Greer. It cost you 2 coaches in Brian Flores and also Mike McDaniel. And you ended up landing on a new coach because you tanked for Tua. And you're paying him $54 million out the door. And you never won a playoff game. In the entire time that Tua was there, tanking for Tua was a train wreck. So, could he land there? Another place that you could see Kyler Murray landing. And finally, how about this one? The Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't know what Aaron Rodgers, Mr. Ayahuasca, is going to do. You know, the guy who hides in caves. And then in his offseason, he goes to like the marijuana conventions. And, you know, he's sitting around hanging out with those kind of guys. So I have no idea what the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to do. Now, here's something that you really have to look at with the Steelers. This used to be the gold standard in pro football. when it came to running an organization. Their transition plan, what's it been? It's been guys like Mason Rudolph and Justin Fields and a 42-year-old quarterback. What's your transition plan from Ben Roethlisberger for a team that has done so many things right, won the most Super Bowls of all time? They never got this thing right. Could this be a spot that he lands with the new head coach, Mike McCarthy, the Pittsburgh Steelers? If I am Kyler Murray, I take that number 4 and I go with the Pittsburgh Steelers because that would be the best opportunity. We're going to talk a little more NFL with our friend George Kurtz and get his thoughts on what happened. By the way, is Cowboys making some news? We'll do that next on SportsGrid. Love talking with George Kurtz because he's a man of many talents and we get to talk all kinds of sports with him. I'm going to start it off with the World Baseball Classic. So I'm going to ask you something that I asked Donnie a couple minutes ago here. Okay, Dominican Republic, Japan, Team USA versus the field. Who you got?
As coming into it, I took Team Japan. There's a lot of reasons here. I think the Dominican Republic is probably right behind Japan here. It's not a knock on the United States, but I was disappointed, Dan, in that after Team USA wins the gold medal in hockey and the women's hockey as well here, right? It was great. It was patriotic, and yet still some players didn't want to play in the WBC, right? Tariq Skubal, I'm going to pitch 3 innings against Great Britain. Thank you. All right, I can get you and I can pitch 3 innings against Great Britain and we'll win. All right, so just disappointing, Dan, that we didn't get that turnout, right? That these guys want to pitch in it. I mean, Scuba, what is the point of 3 innings against Great Britain? Did you want the jersey? You want the cap? Is that what it is? Now he is since hedging on that a little bit. Maybe he'll pitch further. We heard last night, so we'll see how that works out. I was never a huge WBC guy, Dan. Not that I disliked it, but I was never like, oh, okay, when's it on? I got to watch this. But this year I started to get into it for whatever reason here. Okay, what time it's on? Okay, Fox. I got to find out what channel it's on, what time it's on. And I've been watching it, so I've been more into it, but still a little disappointed here. I took Team Japan to win at DR2, United States 3, mainly because it's not really about the starting pitching anyway. It's about the bullpen. Now, the starters are only going to go 50, 60 pitches. That's 4 innings, 5 at most. It's about the bullpens, and I don't trust Team USA's bullpen.
You know what? I think you bring up a great point about the Olympic Games, and maybe the WBC had a great springboard coming off the Olympics that they could have really galvanized from. Because as you said, I'm with you. I wanted to see if those guys had the same energy that I was watching the NHL guys and the NHL girls play with. They had great pride. And then I watched Team USA against Great Britain the other night. But then I did watch the Dominican team when they played that exhibition game against the Tigers. The place went insane. So again, I mean, for Team USA, it just looks like you said, they wanted the hat and jersey. A little disappointing in the excitement from that type of team. I did hear Aaron Judge, though, George, say he was really looking forward to it. I don't know. Maybe that's just for the cameras, though.
I think Judge has not participated in this before. He generally likes to take a spring training slow here, so I think he did want to play in it this year. Because he would have said no, right? Everybody wants him to participate in the home run derby. Yep. He says no to that. He doesn't have any problem with the word no. So I think he did want to participate in this. I think what we see from other countries, Dan, now you and I have been around forever, right? I know I go back to the 70s, Yankees, Jackson, Nettles, Munson, all those guys. American baseball it's a business. It's serious, right? I sometimes wonder if the players just don't know how to have fun. Enjoy. You see with Dominicans, right? They hit a home run and then they go bananas. All right. And I'm not saying I agree with that all the time, but I'm saying that they look like they enjoy the game. Same thing with players from other countries. The Americans, it's a business. I think they're afraid of, if I look like I'm having fun, now people are going to yell at me on Twitter or X, Snapchat, or whatever, Instagram is going on here. I think they need to loosen up a little bit, relax, have fun.
Absolutely. So let me get you over to some football here. So the Eagles just inked down their guy, Jordan Davis, to a 3-year, $78 million contract. You tell me 65, I believe it was, guaranteed. Jalen Carter, I thought was going to be the guy. I really did think it was going to be Carter first. Were you surprised that they went with the other tackle? Because Carter was eligible, and they're talking nearly $30 million.
It makes you wonder if they're sort of playing the game here. All right, who's going to sign first? All right, well, I'm not saying they owe the same package to both. Maybe it's more money to one than the other. Whoever signs first, we want to get this deal done, then we'll worry about the other. All right, there's also the franchise that they could use on them next year if they had to. So there's more than one way they could skin this cat here. So I wonder if that's what was going on here. They're both very good players. They're great players, right? I mean, anybody would love to have them. But I do wonder, it's a lot of money to tie up there. Hey, I'm the Cowboy fan. They got 3 defensive tackles making $1 gazillion. Too much. All right, you can't do that. So I wonder if Howie Rose was thinking a little bit out long term here, where, okay, maybe I can't have all this tied up. That being said, I do think they get the deal done with both. A.J. Brown, the wide receiver, I think he's gone eventually before free agency on Wednesday. But I think the Eagles will keep their DTs.
What about your Cowboys here? Jerry said he wants to make a big splash. They move some money around with Dak, CeeDee Lamb. They're probably going to move some money around there with Quinnen Williams and also with Kenny Clark. Do you really believe that they're going to be a player on free agency, in your opinion, is coming off season here?
Well, I think you need a defined player. Do I think they're going to be a big player? Probably
like
not.
All in, like that thing the other day, All In last year or something, whatever that thing was.
I'm a poker player, Dan. Jerry's definition of all in and mine are a little different. All right, because he did nothing. All right. I assume at this point in my life, I've been a Cowboy fan forever here, and I'll always be a Cowboy fan. I'm never going to go against that, but I assume every move that Jerry does is wrong. I'm just going to assume that. It's the way it works out here, and I don't care what he says. All right, blah 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 blah. Shut up, please, be quiet. But I think he'll do more than he usually does. How about that? They won't be quiet in free agency, but they won't be huge players. I think they would have liked to have gotten Max Crosby. They couldn't get it done. They weren't going to give up both number ones this year. I think they'll be in on Trey Hendrickson, to try and get him in the fold here, but I don't think that's going to work out either. I don't expect him to come to Dallas here. So I think they're going to be players at the tier 1 guys. I think they'll be in about tier 2 guys. They need help everywhere on defense, right? You need edge rushers. They're going to a 3-4 here, so you need linebacker help. You need secondary help. You're not going to solve that all with those 2 first-round picks. People need to remember, the Cowboys don't have a second or third-round pick. I do expect the Cowboys to trade down in this draft. I think they'll take their player at 12, but I think they'll trade down from 20 to try and recoup either the second or third rounder.
Christian Parker ends up becoming the defensive coordinator of the Cowboys. You think he tries to entice Nakobe Dean to potentially come over with him? Because it looks like the Philadelphia Eagles are not going to retain him. You bring him over, he was the green dot guy for Vic Fangio in that defense, and health has been an issue for them. I mean, you watched him play the last couple of years, George. This guy's been a missile when he gets on the field, and he changed that defense around. Health, again, as I said, that's the number one issue that you have with this player. Could you see him being added to that mix over in Dallas?
Ding, ding, ding. I would be surprised if he's not. All right, once again, you need the position, right? And you said it, green dot player. He knows the defense. He can sort of be that coach on the field to help everybody out. I think it would be, I'm not going to say a shock, but I would be surprised if he doesn't have a star on his helmet sometime this week. Yeah, it may not be first day, maybe it's start Thursday there, but I'd be surprised if he's not. I think that's one of the positions the Dallas Cowboys definitely need. And you need someone to teach that defense, right? I mean, let's not forget, Jerry Jones sunk Eberflus last year. I mean, Eberflus had his issues anyway, but he traded Parsons right before the season started here. He's going to help out Christian Parker this year. And I think getting Parker's guy, Dean, assuming Parker likes Dean, I see no reason why he wouldn't. I think he's going to get Parker his guy, Dean, to help him out as far as coaching that defense.
You know, for the first time in 31 years, the Baltimore Ravens, they use a first-round pick. Wait, they use 2 first-round picks to get Max Crosby. Your takeaway on it, 26 and 27 first-round pick for Max Crosby. Jesse Mentor, the first-year head football coach in Baltimore, he ends up getting a star player. How much was this, though, really to show Lamar Jackson, hey, Lamar, we're building a team for success and a championship team. That contract extension we have on the table, George, was this a little bit of both, getting the team better and also sending maybe a smoke signal out to Lamar Jackson's folks?
Oh, I think absolutely. I also think the Raiders trying to get back to their identity, right? The issues they've had over the years, where they've had some problems here. So I like the deal for both sides here. Raiders had to get productivity out of this Crosby trade, and they did. Although maybe not go in the same conference. And Tom Brady said today he wouldn't have traded him to the Patriots. Well, he traded him to the Ravens. I'm not sure if that helps you any there. They're still a very good team. But I think the Ravens are going for it now. They want to get back to their identity, right? That defensive identity they had for 31 years that they seem to have lost of late here. So I like the trade for both sides here. I think for the Raiders, you get those 2 number picks. You have to build, right? You're going to be bad still for another year. We need to keep building up here. And for the Ravens, you get that player now that everybody has to watch on defense. Okay, where's Max? Where's he lining up? We got to block this guy. He is a game wrecker when he's in there.
Absolutely. We're going to talk more with George Kurtz here and get his thoughts on A.J. Brown. He mentioned it. We'll do that next here on SportsGrid.
Talk! I'm innocent. Got the wrong guy. It wasn't me. I didn't do anything. Okay, it was me. I did it.
Bringing an owl to an interrogation? That's a power move.
Every time. Yeah.
Hiring America's largest injury law firm for your injury? That's also a power move. Morgan & Morgan, America's largest injury law firm.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
How much do you think tanking is hurting the NBA right now, too, and what we're seeing, like we saw with that Jazz and Orlando game a week ago? How much do you think that's hurting the game?
I can't wait until professional sports in the United States adopts a European model, especially like a Premier League model, and they start doing relegation. The day you start doing relegation, everything changes. Everything will change.
Outspoken with Dan Sileo, only on SportsGrid.
Well, I ended up adding this since our show started here, Rohit, but his points prop tonight at 20.5 is the same number from the Iowa State game. That's a bit of a mistake, right? When we consider the gap in opponents here. I think Peterson specifically steps up. He needs to. I think he kind of owes this team a great performance.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
Dan, we're going to talk some more NFL here with our friend George Kurtz here and get his opinions on what Philadelphia is going to do with A.J. Brown. Now, George, I want to lay this out for you here, okay? Last 4 years, you're 50-18. You've got 2 NFC championship rings. You've got a Super Bowl ring, and you make $32 million. What's your problem? What do you have a problem in Philly? Why do you have a problem?
Oh, I don't have the answer for you. I just know as a Cowboy fan, trade him. Trade him. Right? Go ahead. All right. I mean, I think they sort of have to at this point. He's causing too many problems. We all know the wide receiver is the diva position. So many of these guys cause issues here, but he doesn't seem like he wants to be there. I mean, you're absolutely right. You win. You're winning Super Bowls. I mean, you win at least the division. You go into the playoffs, get a good quarterback, a very good GM, and yet you're not happy. All right, then fine. Go somewhere, be traded here. The problem is things are sort of drying up, right? I mean, could he go to New England? Sure, but what if they sign Alec Pierce? Yeah, well, they don't have to give up anybody. I mean, don't get me wrong. Pierce is not A.J. Brown. I'm not saying that. But maybe they don't want to give up a 1 and a 3 if Roseman's going to stand firm on that. So you sign the free agent instead. Where is he going to go? So that's sort of the intriguing thing here. But I said, as the Cowboy fan, I want him out. I think it makes the Eagles weaker here. I know they're trying to sell that Devonta Smith could be a number 1. He's not a number 1. He's a really good number 2. Don't get me wrong, good wide receiver, but he's not a number 1 here. I just don't think he's built for that. You and I were talking during the break about Michael Irvin. He's not built like an Irvin or Morris. Owens, one of those big old guys there. So I think he's gone. I think he's going to go somewhere. I still think New England might be the favorite here, but there'll be other teams crawling out of the woodwork too if Philadelphia really is going to move on. And of course, I think Roseman would like to get him out of the NFC, get him towards the AFC. Remember, Buffalo? Probably not anymore after they just traded for DJ Moore. So that's another option down the drain.
So I would throw this at you. I had a conversation with Alonzo Highsmith, who is on he's on the panel there with Elliot Wolf. He's part of the player development there in New England. And they said 2 and a 3 potentially for A.J. Brown. Now, a 2 and a 3, obviously that's not where Howie Roseman is. Do you believe that A.J. Brown is still a number 1? Do you think that A.J. Brown hasn't lost anything? And would you give up a number 1 for A.J. Brown?
No, I wouldn't. I don't know if I'd give up a 2 and a 3 either. I think a 3 is about right. Maybe you can have conditions go down to a 2, depending on what kind of season he has or how well the team does, whatever way you want to put it here. But I wouldn't give up a number 1. I'm not giving up a number 1 for many, unless I'm the Rams. They give up a number 1 for anybody, right? They don't mind. But I protect my draft picks, right? I do. And as you said, he's getting older here. And once again, I mean, it was the Eagle hatred here, whatever it is. Fly, Eagles, fly. God, I hate that. But you wonder if maybe, I don't think he was ever a true. Do we ever really think that he was, once again, a Randy Moss, Terrell Owens, Justin Jefferson? I don't think he was ever quite that. Maybe next tier down here, right? Next tier down. So I think he's, if I'm trading for him, I'd want to give up a 3 and I condition it to a number 2. Roseman's going to want what he wants. So I want a 1 and a 3. Hey, I want $1 million tonight from SportsGrid. I ain't going to get it. So I think it's just going to work like that. I think he will be traded. It won't be for a 1 and 3. Maybe it's for a late 1 straight up. I can see that. But I think a 2 is probably where I'm leaning towards.
Let me go over to Seattle with you here, George. And I've been saying this about Kenneth Walker. You may have a completely different opinion of him here. I think he's a dude. I mean, I know he's the reigning Super Bowl MVP. He had 135 yards, I think, in the Super Bowl. But Seattle's moving off of him. Good or bad move by Seattle?
Bad. I understand. You don't want to give him the long-term deal. Okay, running back, you and I know how it is. They don't pay running backs for long-term. Too many car crashes these guys are in every game here. But why not just franchise them? 14 mil, running back?
Yep.
That's great. I understand he'd probably be a little upset. I get that. And maybe you owed him. You felt you owed him, so you didn't want to franchise him, so you're doing him a favor. But for most teams, it's, team first, player second here. So I was surprised they didn't franchise him. I think it's a mistake, especially with Zach Charbonneau tore his ACL late last year. So he's not going to – he could come back this year, but he's not going to be that same player here. Now you're sort of forced to go into a draft looking for a running back, which granted, you could do. You could find running backs certainly late in the first round and any round after that. Maybe that's their plan, just to get younger. But to answer your question, Dan, I thought it was a mistake.
Okay, so I want to ask you about Kyler Murray here. I think that this guy is going to be coveted by a lot of teams, and here's why. Arizona is paying him $36 million to go away, George. which means this: I could sign him for a league minimum deal, bring him in. Now, if you look at his first couple of years with Cliff Kingsbury, he was pretty good there with him. I mean, not that a lot of guys have had success there playing the quarterback position outside of Carson Palmer, maybe Kurt Warner. Not a lot of people have had success there. Is this somebody like maybe like the Dolphins, the Jets, somebody like the Vikings, somebody like that? I mean, it's not that big of a gamble here. Here's some of my predictions on where I think he would land. Maybe he goes to Pittsburgh because it's a better organization. You know, you've got all the intangibles there of a good front office around him. What do you make of Kyler Murray?
I think the Cardinals did him a favor. All right, because you're releasing him. So now he has his choice of where to go. I think there's a lot of pressure on him because wherever he goes, he needs to succeed if he wants to get that next big contract, right? I'm going to say no to Pittsburgh because I just don't think they have the infrastructure around to be successful right now as far as what he needs to do. All right, DK Metcalf, once again, he's sort of a lower A.J. Brown to me. Never quite that number one guy, and they don't have much else there. I mean, the Minnesota Vikings would make some sense. You got J.J., you got Addison. All right, so you could throw the ball and have some success there. I don't know about team success, really rough division, but you should have success throwing the ball there. Falcons, to a lesser degree, Drake London. You got a great running back in Bijan Robinson. I can certainly see that. I don't see the Jets because, yes, you'll start. That team's bad. All right, I don't know how much better they're going to get. Aaron Glenn is just way in over his head there with the Jets. So I don't see the Jets there. I sort of lean towards the Vikings. I think they'd like to get somebody in there also to push McCarthy, but maybe Murray doesn't like that because he wouldn't be the automatic starter, but he wouldn't be the automatic starter with Atlanta either. Pittsburgh, he would be, right? Assuming no Aaron Rodgers, right? He'd be the guy. So he has to weigh all of this because he needs to be successful next year or else he's a career backup now. Right? He'll be that guy, we'll get Kyler Murray. He needs to be successful, so he needs to be very careful in where he chooses here. I think you named the right four teams. I think there'll be another team that comes out of the mix as well. You know, Cleveland, could that be? But I think the same thing as the Jets. Does he want to go there?
20 seconds here. Who got the better end of the Buffalo Bills, Chicago Bears, DJ Moore deal?
I think the Bears did. DJ Moore's another guy I like, don't love here. Bills didn't have any problem scoring points last year, even without the wide receiver, right? They were giving up too many points. They could lose more defensive help. I do like the move, though, for both teams.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, DJ Moore, Brandon Beane, I think he needs to add a little bit more there. Maybe we see somebody like a Mike Evans end up landing up there. You put him on the other side of DJ Moore because Josh Allen needs some help. George, it is always great. Your Cowboys may make some moves. I don't know what all in is, but we will find out. Final thoughts next, right here on SportsGrid. right, guys. I don't really like to do these kind of topics because I'm going to sound like a fence straddler here, and I really don't know what side of the aisle to land on here. Tua Tagovailoa will be a guy that will be pursued. He will be released by the Miami Dolphins. Here's a guy that, when he came out of Alabama, had so much promise. Chris Greer, the former general manager of the Miami Dolphins, were so coveted. They had the thing, as we mentioned earlier, tank for Tua. Here's a player that led the NFL in passing yards when he was there in Miami, had Tyreek Hill, had Jalen Waddle. They put a lot of pieces around him. But what became a problem? His concussions, his head injuries. What NFL team is going to sign Tua Tagovailoa knowing that he's maybe a hit away from being a jar of Skittles? I mean, eventually one day the National Football Players Association has got to come up and say what's in the best interest for these players. Here's Tua's concussion history, folks. Take a look at this here, too. When you look at the concussion history that this player has had, look, we saw players like Troy Aikman. We've seen players like Steve Young in the past have to deal with this. Tua's concussion injury, it goes back to college. The Buffalo Bills, look at how close they are in proximity, too, especially those three in 22, and then the one in 24. Ask yourself this. You've made all this money, and I'm not one of these guys that sits here and tells the player that, listen, I know your love of the game. You know, somebody asked me, Stills, are you going to tell Tua Tagovailoa not to play in the National Football League again? What would you do at 26? Hey, at 26, you could take my arm off and I'm going to play. At 60, I'm not going to do that. Hopefully, you're smarter as you get older, but when you're younger, you believe you're Superman. You believe you can fight through anything. You the love of the game. Look, being paid, making money, it is wonderful when you get a professional paycheck. There is nothing like it when you're starting to get paid. But you got to love the game because you leave pieces of your body all over the country when you play this game. And as you get older, you don't get healthier. All of a sudden, you don't have the fountain of youth as you get older. Your body starts to deteriorate. Your brain starts to take on more hits. And I tell you this all the time, folks. The National Football League, it's not for the faint of heart. People think it's about kissing cheerleaders and cashing paychecks. Behind the scenes, when you go behind the curtain, there's a lot of pain that involves playing in this game. Look, I played 7 years of professional football in multiple leagues. I don't have a decent night's sleep. I can't sleep for more than an hour. Would I do it again? Absolutely. Am I crying about it? Absolutely not. I had a love of the game, and I loved playing football. I loved playing pro football. I loved getting paid, but I also loved the game. So when you're telling a player like Tagovailoa, why are you coming back, dude? You've made all the money. And again, I don't like to go down this lane where one hand, I want to tell him, dude, it's time to go and it's time to retire. On the other hand, I'm not going to tell a player to sit here and put his dreams in a closet here. It's a tough call here, but somebody has to be the bigger person here. Is this the NFL Players Association's responsibility to come in and say, let's do a CTE test now on Tua Tagovailoa? What NFL team is going to go forward and say, Tua, we're going to sign you to a $25 to $30 million deal and take the risk of this guy having a catastrophic injury? We're not talking about signing somebody like Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold on a reclamation project or even a Kyler Murray. We're talking a guy who's had multiple head injuries. It's like being in a car wreck 6 times. Major car wrecks. You're in a place right now where if you're another organization, do you sign this player knowing full well that this could be a catastrophic injury? It's really a tough place that he's in. I know he has a love of the game. Hey, players don't lose the love of the game. Even when you're older, you love the game. Your body just deteriorates. What Tua does moving forward and what an organization might do moving forward. Who would be that team that would sign him? knowing that you could be part of something that could be so destroying to this player. You know, the NFL tells us all the time that they love the players. They look out for the safety of the players. Is signing Tua Tagovailoa to another football team and to another NFL contract, is that loving the player, looking out for the player's health? I don't think it is. No, you want to play 18 games. Eventually, you want to play 20 games. Somebody has to come to their common sense here and say, dude, it's a big decision that an NFL team will have to decide on whether or not they sign a player with multiple head injuries. Hope he makes the right decision. Godspeed, my friend. Have yourselves a great weekend, and we'll see you on the flip side.